Michigan got into a trap with Mike Boynton's 2-year deal, and Michigan fans should be not too happy about this. Some of them are, and I see some of it, but I know most of you are going to be like, what are you talking about, JR? He kept the entire roster. They just won a national championship. This is smart continuity, and I get that. Locking in the guy who kept Mustafa, Trey McKinney, and the whole band together offers a lot of encouragement for next season, but was it the only play they had left on the board after Dusty May bolted for the Mavs? If it was, that's not great, and it seems like Michigan knew they didn't have another option. So the second year is not fully guaranteed in this scenario. Honestly, it feels like this has the kind of like the players' fingerprints all over the decision here. And if that's the case, decisions like this have a brutal history of what happens when programs hand the keys to hiring the next coach over to the players in fear of losing them off the team. And I won't lie, I have genuine concerns about what this means for Michigan's place in the Big Ten hierarchy. Maybe not right away next season. I mean, we saw Juwan Howard do really well in his first season after taking over, but in the next few years, because in this episode of the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel, I'm going to show you exactly why this type of prove-it deal can be a slow-motion disaster for recruiting and donor energy, why letting the McKinney family steer this hire is the highest risk and kind of low reward move in the NIL era, and how Warren Manuel is someone I just refuse to trust with the Michigan athletic department. I know I'm not the only one that's kind of there right now. Other people are there, but I refuse to trust them with the Michigan athletic department. So here's what's got me concerned, all right? On Friday, we got today, for some of you who are watching, we got what most would clarify as a Friday news dump, where Michigan announced Mike Boynton Jr., who is no longer the interim head coach. He's the full-time head coach on a 2-year deal, and the school release made it sound pretty clear and pretty confident. Warren Manuel talked about championship culture, how the players and staff believe in Boynton's vision, all that good stuff. And Boynton himself said he's grateful and ready to continue the success they built together. All the right words, and this is exactly what you want to hear, but there are a few things that are kind of off here to me. First, the timing of announcing this. Michigan fans are widely celebrating this announcement, but based on Boynton's coaching record history, this short contract, and an easy in-house exit possibly in this one, this doesn't look like a promising endorsement of Boynton, if you ask me. You see, if you look layers deeper, it's clear the second year of this deal is not fully guaranteed. It's a 1-year contract with an option that Michigan can walk away from cheaply if things go sideways. That's not stability. It's the ultimate low risk, high, skepticism contract that's out there. It loudly signals that the team likes Boynton's potential, but does not fully trust him or want to commit to him long term, which is somewhat to be expected. Dusty May left for the Dallas Mavericks in late June. Boynton, who had been the defensive coordinator and a key recruiter for the previous 2 seasons, got the interim tag. The program freaked out. Trey McKinney's father, John, went on a now deleted interview and basically said Trey told Warren Manuel in no certain terms that he needs Mike Boynton to be the head coach, and he's not trying to hear any other names to be considered at this point. Within days, Mustafa Muhammad announced that he's coming back, and the rest of the roster did as well. Only LJ Kaysen decided to enter the transfer portal. Michigan went from we might lose half the team to we kept almost everybody in about 3 weeks, and there is a lot of reason to celebrate that. Don't get me wrong. That retention is impressive and should set Michigan up for another good to possibly great season next year. Credit to where it's due. I'm not in the business of, not giving people credit when they make things happen. Boynton did here, and Boynton and the staff did the job they were asked to do when they came in. But here's the part that Michigan media is already spinning as a masterstroke. They are treating the player-driven hire as a feature instead of a bug. And that, my friend, is exactly where the existential dread begins for me. Whether it's true or not, from the outside looking in, it looks like Michigan got bullied into hiring their next head coach that the players wanted. Since 2020, the transfer portal and NIL have given players kind of like nuclear leverage in a lot of scenarios. If they do not get the coach they want, they can leave tomorrow if something happens they don't want. That is the new operating system of college basketball. And when programs start making permanent head coach, not permanent, but very long head coaching decisions, head coaching choices to be there, primarily because the current roster is essentially saying do this or else we're going to leave, the long-term results have not been good. Look, when Louisville hired Payne in 2022 after the players and boosters basically demanded the continuity, it was an absolute disaster. Payne was terrible and it did not go well for them. Then you had Michigan when Michigan went with Juwan Howard because former players of the Fab Five looked very promising because he kept players like Isaiah Livers and Xavier Simpson. But of course, even though they had some success with John Beilein's infrastructure, Michigan kept him a year too long because the program was scared of the portal fallout and the optics of firing a former star, which is why I've said multiple times it's never a good idea to hire a former player as your head coach. Syracuse hired Adrian Autry in 2023 under kind of similar the guys love him type of pressure, and he's had a losing record the past 2 years. He had a winning record his first year. In the past 2 years, he's had a losing record. None of those programs looked smarter a few years later. Even the success stories are pretty cautionary. I mean, if you want to talk about a success story where the players wanted the coach, you can kind of look at Ohio State. Ohio State kept Jake Diebler after the Chris Holtmann debacle mess, whatever you want to call it. Diebler made the tournament that year, or made the tournament this last year. Not that year. He almost made it that year. But this last year, I mean, fine. Like that works for you, but it was also, they didn't win a single game in the tournament. So if they would have swung for like John Calipari or Josh Schertz when they had the chance, the ceiling would have been much, much higher, much earlier. This contrasts with Arizona in 2021. They hired Tommy Lloyd, a proven recruiter and system guy from a successful program, not because the current players demanded it, they said they had to have it, but because the athletic director had a clear vision Lloyd has kept Arizona elite ever since. Michigan just did the opposite in this scenario. They let the McKinney family campaign become the deciding factor, and even if it wasn't, it kind of looks that way. Trey told Ward, I need Boynton, and that is not a program making a strategic hire. That is a program negotiating with its own players under duress. College sports fans need to stop believing this narrative that player input equals smart leadership. Many schools, media are selling their fans this idea that keeping the roster happy is the highest form of coaching IQ when it's really not. It's the highest form of short-term panic, right? Louisville, Juwan Howard's last year, Syracuse, every single one of those hires were praised in the moment for listening to the players or listening to this, that, and the other. Every single one of them left the program worse off. Autry is still there, so I guess we can't say, but at least right now it's worse off than it was. Michigan just walked into a very similar trap with open eyes. Rosters come and go, but the right hire will stick with the program for much longer, especially considering if the first year doesn't go well. The players will just up and leave anyway because that's what they can do. And here's where this matters to you, even if you're an Illinois guy or an Iowa guy or an Indiana guy. I just said all three of the I teams. The Big Ten. When the blue blood programs start making decisions this way, it lowers the standard for the entire conference. The Big Ten is supposed to be the place where athletic directors still act like adults. If Michigan, the program that just won the national title for the conference, first time in however many years, what was it, almost over 25 years, the others, if that happens, it's now letting a sophomore's dad dictate the hire. Every other school feels the pressure to keep their players and do what they need to do as well, and that's how you get to get kind of at the bottom of the entire situation. Michigan's short deal with Mike Boynton creates two immediate problems for Michigan fans. First, negative recruiting is about to go nuclear. Every rival coach in the Big Ten just got a free talking point. Why would you commit to Michigan when the coach only has a 1-year guaranteed deal? What happens when they fire him next April and you're stuck with whoever they bring in? Bring in another coach again. High school kids and their families hear that. Portal guys hear that. Donors hear that. And the championship culture language, it sounded great in the press release, but it does not survive a 12, midnight, 2 a.m. phone call from a rival assistant. And yes, players do get called at 2 a.m. by rival assistants. It happens. Believe me. Second, the timing trap. Everyone knows Dusty May left late in the cycle. You cannot reasonably expect a Josh Schertz or a Nate Oates or a Billy Donovan to leave a good situation that they're in late June and inherit a roster that could possibly walk. They didn't walk, but they could possibly walk. So the 1-year guarantee deal makes a certain amount of sense as a bridge. Like, I'm not going to be completely against it. It certainly does make some sense, but that bridge is now loaded with TNT. I mean, that thing could blow whenever they decide to, because the internal pressure is going to be insane. If this team, still one of the most talented in the country, by the way, I mean, you look at the betting odds on this and where they're at. Let me pull those up really fast. All right, there we go. I got it. Michigan still top 5 in college basketball and odds to win the national championship, right? So that's great, but the pressure is going to be on. I mean, does that make a deep run? The second year becomes, a lame duck disaster if he doesn't get Sweet 16? Like, that's a lot for a first-year head coach at the program. He's been a head coach before, but at the program. Assistants will start looking. Recruits will stall. The prove-it year turns into a prove-it-or-else year, and the culture Dusty spent 2 years building really starts cracking. I mean, those odds on FanDuel kind of tell you the story. Now, it would take a pretty big disaster for Michigan not to have a good year next year. Like, let's be clear about that. The roster is loaded. They have an elite backcourt, size, defensive identity that Boynton himself helped build and will continue to maintain. On paper, this team should be a top 5, top 10 team again. And they're top 5 in odds on FanDuel right now to win the national championship, plus 1,600. So because the coach is operating with one hand tied behind his back, though, because of the pressure, he cannot look a 5-star in the eye and say, I'm going to be here my entire career. I'm going to be here no matter what next year. He can only say, I'm going to be here as long as Ward Manuel decides otherwise. And that brings us to Ward Manuel. Listen, Dusty May falling, into his lap 2 years ago was a gift from God. Like, let's just be honest about it. It does not make Ward a good AD. This is the same guy who turned the Michigan athletic department into a clown show with Sharon Moore and his saga, and who waited way too long with Juwan Howard, not to mention the litany of arrests and having the FBI in the program, and there's stuff outside of football and basketball we could talk about too. It's a complete disaster at times, and he's ran it so terribly. He is now trying to course correct by looking decisive, but every decision he makes still has to be filtered through the same lens. This is an athletic director who has repeatedly shown he cannot get ahead of problems. He only reacts after they become public relation disasters. Giving Boynton a short, cheap player influence deal, coach influence deal, is not visionary leadership. It is damage control dressed up as continuity. It is officially time to stop giving Ward Manuel the benefit of the doubt. This hire is not a masterstroke. It is the latest chapter in a multi-year pattern of reactive optics, reactive optics first decision making that has already cost Michigan football stability, their basketball consistency, and other sports as well. Like I mentioned, Dusty May said he left college basketball because of what it was becoming, yet he was thriving in it. He just won a national championship and had another top 10 or top 5 roster this year. And I think the real reason was Ward himself. At some point, it stops being a coincidence that every coach who wins or plays for or wins a national championship leaves the school. The common denominator here is clear. It's Ward Manuel, whose passive, reactive approach has repeatedly alienated the university's best coaching mind. headlines. John Beilein abruptly walked away due to the lack of institutional alignment. Jim Harbaugh fled to the NFL after years of being forced to operate without unconditional backing amidst the administration drama. And Dusty May just left months after a national title because I think, and this is just me, the department was refusing to modernize or provide the elite long-term security required to protect a national championship archetype. By dragging his feet on modern contract structures and dropping short-term defensive kind of prove-it deals like the Mike Boynton promotion late on a Friday afternoon, Manuel reveals a pattern of administrative complacency. A truly elite athletic director secures his stars, commands the news cycle. Manuel merely manages the fallout of his own failures to retain them, proving that the mass exodus of Michigan's greatest coaches they've had recently isn't bad luck. It's a direct indictment on the leadership of this athletic program. So here's the bottom line with all of this. All right. Michigan, yes, they just won a national title and immediately put themselves in a one-year timer with this head coach. They let players' family drive the most important hire in the next decade, and they handed the keys to an athletic director whose track record should make every Michigan fan nervous. The roster is good enough on paper to cover over the cracks in one season, but the structural trap is real. The recruiting hit is going to come at some point. The internal pressure is already building, and the rest of the Big Ten is watching with popcorn. This is not about hating Boynton. I don't hate Boynton. I hardly know him as a coach. I hope he does great. The man did his job in an absolutely impossible situation. This is about recognizing when a blue blood program starts making mid-major decisions under the guise of keeping the band together. But that's just me. What do you think? Is Ward not getting the credit he deserves? Was this the best move he can make in an impossible situation? Or are you like me and seeing more reaction to bad news in this scenario? Subscribe for more of my Big Ten analysis here on this channel, the Big Ten Huddle. And please do like the video, give us a 5-star rating and review on podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll talk soon. Have a good one.